Billy's hands trembled as he knelt in the dew-kissed soil, the shears slipping from his grip like a confession he couldn't hold back. "Faggot landscaper," the voice had sneered from the veranda just hours ago, laced with champagne giggles from the glittering crowd, words that sliced deeper than any thorn. But it was the silence after, the way the estate's shadows swallowed him whole, that made his heart thunder like the approaching storm over the Hudson Valley. The rain came down in sheets that night, turning the manicured lawns of Willowbrook Estate into a slick, treacherous mirror of the sky's fury. Billy Harper wiped the mud from his face with the back of his sleeve, his boots squelching as he trudged toward the old potting shed at the edge of the property. At 28, he was all lean muscle and quiet resolve, the kind of man who blended into the foliage like he'd been born from it. His brown hair clung to his forehead in wet curls, and his green eyes, sharp as new leaves, scanned the horizon for any sign of the groundskeeper's truck. Nothing. Just the relentless patter against the tin roof as he ducked inside. He'd come to Willowbrook 2 years ago, fleeing the kind of heartbreak that doesn't heal with time or distance. Back in Brooklyn, he'd been Billy the barista, the one with the easy smile and the sketches of impossible gardens doodled on napkins. But that was before Marcus. Smooth-talking Marcus with his Wall Street tie and promises of forever had left him for a promotion and a penthouse view that didn't include some artsy queer from the wrong side of the bridge. The betrayal had gutted him, left him wandering upstate like a ghost, until old Mr. Hargrove, the estate's owner, had offered him this job. No questions asked. Just a nod and a key to the shed. Billy flicked on the bare bulb overhead, its yellow glow casting long shadows over shelves of rusted tools and seed packets yellowed with age. He stripped off his soaked shirt, shivering as the chill bit into his skin, and reached for a dry towel. That's when he heard it. Footsteps, heavy and uneven, splashing through the puddles outside. His pulse quickened. Poachers? Trespassers? Willowbrook wasn't the fortress it pretended to be after dark. The door creaked open, and there stood Albert Voss, 6 feet of tailored regret, his Armani suit plastered to his frame like a second skin. Albert was 31, heir to Voss Industries, the kind of man who summered at Willowbrook because his family had discovered it back when Teddy Roosevelt was still shooting at birds. Tonight, though, he looked less like a scion and more like a drowned fox, his blonde hair matted, blue eyes wild with something Billy couldn't place. Panic? Maybe. Or the ghost of too many martinis. "Harper," Albert gasped, slamming the door behind him. Water pooled at his feet. Don't say anything. Just Christ. Hide me." Billy froze, towel midway to his chest, his bare torso suddenly feeling exposed under the intruder's gaze. "Mr. Voss? What the hell? Albert." "Call me Albert." He raked a hand through his hair, pacing the cramped space like a caged animal. "They're after me. The whole damn party. I said something stupid about the merger, the board, and now Father's got his cronies combing the grounds. If they find me here, reeking of gin and failure." Billy's mind raced. The party. That endless swirl of crystal glasses and backroom deals on the veranda, where Willowbrook's elite gathered to worship their own reflections. He'd pruned the rose bushes that afternoon, close enough to hear the barbs. Look at the gardener. Thinks he's Van Gogh with his little trims. Laughter, sharp as shears. He'd kept his head down, but the words had burrowed in. Now, Albert Voss, the golden boy they'd all toasted, was begging sanctuary in his shed. Billy tossed him the towel. Dry off. I'll brew some coffee. Black? Albert caught it, his fingers brushing Billy's for a split second that hung too long in the humid air. Yeah. Black. Thanks. As the percolator hissed to life on the hot plate, Billy pulled on a fresh flannel, the fabric rough against his damp skin. He watched Albert slump onto a stool, peeling off his sodden jacket to reveal a crisp white shirt clinging to the defined lines of his shoulders. There was a vulnerability there, in the way his hands shook, that didn't match the polished facade Billy had glimpsed from afar. Albert Voss, who drove a Porsche and dated models in the society pages, reduced to this, a man unraveling in a gardener's lair. So, Billy said, handing over the mug, steam curling between them like a secret. What did you do? Tell Daddy you're quitting the family circus. Albert barked a laugh, bitter and raw. Worse. I told him the merger's a sham, that it'll gut the town, lay off half the workers at the mill. He laughed. Called me soft. Then the whispers started. Voss's boy. Gone queer for causes now. He sipped, wincing. You heard them today, didn't you? About you. Billy leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. Heard enough. Comes with the territory. It's bullshit. Albert's eyes met his, steady for the first time. You're the only one keeping this place alive. Those hedges? That orchard? Art? Man. Not like their fake-ass deals. Heat crept up Billy's neck. Not from the coffee, but from the intensity in Albert's voice, the way it wrapped around him like ivy. No one had called his work art since Marcus, and even then, it had been laced with condescension. Flattery from the king of the veranda. What's the catch? No catch. Albert set the mug down, his gaze dropping to Billy's hands. Calloused, earth-stained. Just tired of the game. Pretending. The rain drummed on, a curtain sealing them in. Billy felt the pull, that dangerous spark of connection in a place built on isolation. But he knew better. Men like Albert didn't stay in sheds. They returned to verandas, to lives that didn't include dirt under their nails or hearts mended with twine. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving Willowbrook glistening like a promise unkept. Albert slipped out with a murmured thanks and a clap on Billy's shoulder that lingered like a bruise. Billy watched him go, the estate swallowing him back into its gilded maw. He told himself it was nothing, just a night, a shared coffee. But as he pruned the storm-tossed roses, clipping away the broken stems, he couldn't shake the echo of Albert's laugh, or the way his eyes had searched Billy's face like he was mapping uncharted ground. Weeks blurred into the lazy haze of an upstate summer. Billy threw himself into the estate's rhythms. Dawn patrols of the perimeter fence, where deer prints mingled with tire tracks from late-night revelers. Afternoons wrestling the wild English ivy off the stone facade of the main house, its tendrils as stubborn as the ghosts it hid. Willowbrook was Hargrove's folly, a sprawling 50-acre spread on the bluffs overlooking the Hudson, bought in the Gilded Age by robber barons and now leased out for weddings, corporate retreats, and the occasional Voss family soiree. Hargrove himself was a recluse, holed up in the city, leaving Billy as de facto caretaker of this monument to excess. The mockers returned in droves for the annual harvest gala, their laughter floating like pollen on the breeze. Billy stayed low, mulching the paths in his faded jeans and work boots, but their voices found him anyway. Harper's at it again, turning the lawn into some fairy garden. A woman's trill from the gazebo. Fairy. Huh? Fitting. He bit his tongue, focused on the scent of turned earth, the satisfaction of roots taking hold. But then Albert appeared, weaving through the crowd like he owned the air itself, which, in a way, he did. No suit this time, chinos and a linen shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing forearms tanned from yacht weekends. He carried 2 beers, condensation beating on the bottles, and made a beeline for Billy by the fountain. Truce, Albert extended one, his smile crooked, apologetic. For the other night. And for everything else. Billy accepted, the cold glass grounding him. Truce. But if you're here to play White Knight, save it. I handle my own thorns. Not playing. Albert clinked bottles, then leaned against the fountain's edge, close enough that Billy caught the faint citrus of his cologne mixed with something earthier, sweat, maybe, from the heat. Look, I meant what I said. This place. It's suffocating. All these people, circling like vultures. You see it, don't you? The rot under the polish. Billy took a pull from the beer, the bitterness sharp on his tongue. Seen worse. Grew up in a brownstone that leaked like a sieve. It's just money dressed up as history. Albert's eyes lit, like Billy had handed him a key. Tell me about it. Brooklyn, right? The artsy side. Billy hesitated, the old walls rising. Williamsburg. Before it got fancy. Coffee shops. Street art. Guys like me dreaming too big. Guys like you. Albert's voice softened, probing without pushing. Billy shrugged, glancing at the partygoers. Diamonds glinting under string lights. Deals sealed with handshakes that crush dreams. Dreamers who get stepped on. Not you. Albert's hand grazed Billy's arm, light as a leaf. You're building something real here. The touch ignited something Billy had buried deep, a flicker of warmth in the cool September air. They talked then, words tumbling easy as the river below. Albert's pressure cooker life in Manhattan. Boardrooms where queerness was a punchline until it wasn't. Billy's sketches, hidden in a drawer, visions of gardens that healed what houses broke. Laughter came, tentative at first, then full-throated, drawing stares from the veranda. A woman in pearls whispered to her escort, but Albert shot them a glare that could curdle cream, and they looked away. As the gala wound down, fireworks blooming over the Hudson like defiant stars, Albert walked Billy to the shed. Come to the city sometime, he said, pausing at the door. Dinner. No suits. No bullshit. Just us. Billy's heart stuttered. Us. Yeah. Albert stepped closer, the space between them charged. If you want. The kiss was inevitable, soft, searching, tasting of beer and possibility. Billy's hands found Albert's waist, pulling him in, the world narrowing to the press of bodies and the distant pop of fireworks. It was over too soon, Albert pulling back with a grin that lit the dark. Think about it, Harper. Billy watched him vanish into the night, the estate's lights winking out one by one. For the first time in years, Willowbrook didn't feel like exile. It felt like the start of something wild, overgrown, alive. But dawn brought clarity, and with it, the first crack in the soil. A package arrived at the shed, unmarked, heavy. Inside, a leather-bound album, faded photos spilling out like forgotten sins. Willowbrook, 1920s. Hargrove's grandfather posing with starlets. Billy's own great-uncle, Elias Harper, arm in arm with a dark-haired lover by the fountain, their eyes defiant against the lens. Elias, the blacklisted architect who'd designed half the estate's hidden gardens, fleeing scandal to this refuge. Billy's family secret, whispered in childhood tales. The Harpers had built Willowbrook, then lost it to ruin and rumor. He'd come here to reclaim it, piece by quiet piece. But as he traced Elias's face, Albert's kiss still ghosting his lips, Billy wondered if some refuges were meant to stay buried. Fall crept in like a thief, painting Willowbrook's oaks in strokes of crimson and gold. Billy woke to frost on the pumpkins he'd coaxed from the kitchen garden, his breath fogging the shed's single window. The kiss lingered in his dreams, Albert's mouth warm, insistent, a promise that bloomed brighter than the chrysanthemums he'd planted along the drive. They texted now, late-night threads weaving through the miles, Albert railing against his father's latest edict, Billy sharing photos of dew-jeweled spiderwebs or the first frost-kissed apple. "Miss that Brooklyn edge in you," Albert wrote once. "Makes Manhattan feel like a bad sequel." Billy didn't push for the dinner invite, content to let it root slow. But when Albert's Porsche growled up the gravel path one crisp Saturday, unannounced, Billy's resolve wilted like bolting lettuce. Albert emerged in jeans and a wool sweater, looking every inch the Ivy League rebel, a picnic basket swinging from one hand. "Figured you'd dodge if I asked," Albert said, grinning as he rounded the car. "So here I am. Fugitive again." Billy leaned on his rake, dirt-streaked and wary. "From what? Daddy's brunch. Worse. Bridal shower for my sister's latest mistake." Albert shuddered theatrically. "Save me with sandwiches and sarcasm?" They hiked the bluff trail, the Hudson a silver ribbon below, leaves crunching underfoot like whispered confessions. Albert unpacked artisanal cheeses and crusty bread from that overpriced Soho spot, but Billy countered with cider from the estate's press, tart, honest. They ate sprawled on a tartan blanket, backs against a boulder etched with Elias's initials, hidden under moss. "Tell me more about him," Albert said, popping a grape. "Your great-uncle. The one in the photos." Billy tensed, the album still tucked under his cot like a talisman. Elias? He was ahead of his time. Built these gardens to hide in plain sight, mazes for lovers, bowers for secrets. Loved a man named Theo, back when that got you tarred and feathered. Albert's eyes softened, tracing Billy's face. "Sounds like he won anyway. This place, it's his legacy." "Yours too." Billy plucked at the grass, roots stubborn in his fingers. "Legacy's a heavy word. I came here to forget mine, not dig it up." "Forget what?" Albert shifted closer, their knees brushing. "The ex? Marcus." The name hung. "The thorn." Billy nodded, gaze on the river. "He said I was too much, too quiet, too dreamy. Left me for someone who fit his ladder. Climbed right over." Albert's hand covered his, warm and steady. "Fuck him. You're not too much. You're exactly right." The kiss that followed was slower, deeper, the bluff wind tugging at their clothes as if urging them on. Billy tasted salt, tears, laughter, and let himself fall into it, Albert's body an anchor against the pull of old wounds. They broke apart breathless, foreheads touching, the world reduced to the rustle of leaves and the steady thrum of hearts. "Your trouble, boss," Billy murmured. Albert grinned. "Wicked. The best kind." They spent the afternoon exploring the hidden paths Elias had carved. overgrown arbors leading to a forgotten gazebo, its lattice choked with honeysuckle. Albert listened as Billy spun tales. How Theo had carved their initials into the railings, faint now under layers of paint. How Elias had smuggled love letters in hollowed-out apple cores from the orchard. Refuge, Billy said, the word tasting like home. That's what he called it. A place to breathe. By dusk, they lay tangled on the blanket, watching the sun dip behind the palisades, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. Albert's head on Billy's chest, fingers tracing lazy patterns on his arm. I could stay, he whispered. Screw the city. Billy's laugh was soft, sad. You say that now. Wait till the board calls. But in that moment, with the stars pricking the velvet dark, Billy believed it possible. A life stitched from earth and ambition, quiet and bold. The idol shattered 2 weeks later, with the crunch of tires on frost-rimed gravel. Billy was mulching the parterre when the black SUVs rolled in, caterers, florists, a swarm for the Voss Winter Ball. Albert had mentioned it in passing, a necessary evil, but seeing the transformation gutted him. His roses trucked in from Dutch greenhouses, his paths roped off like crime scenes. And there, directing it all with a clipboard and a headset, was Marcus. Billy's rake slipped, clattering to the ground. Marcus, older, sharper, his dark hair slicked back, suit cut like armor. He turned, spotting Billy, and his smile was a blade. All teeth, no warmth. Billy? Christ, of all places. Still playing in the dirt. The words landed like frostbite, but Billy straightened, chin up. Marcus. Didn't peg you for estate wrangler. Event planner now. Pays better than lattes. Marcus's eyes flicked over him, dismissive. Heard you hold up here after. Well, good for you. Finding your level. Billy's fists clenched, soil crumbling under nails. He wanted to swing, to spill every buried hurt, but the workers milled nearby, ears sharp. Instead, he turned back to his mulch, voice even. Level's fine. Warmer than your penthouse. Anyway, Marcus chuckled, low and cruel, then strode off, barking orders. Billy worked through the sting, each forkful of mulch a barrier rebuilt. But when Albert arrived that evening, slipping into the shed with a bottle of bourbon and a kiss that tasted of apology, the dam cracked. Saw him, Billy said later, as they sat by the hot plate, flames dancing in the grate Albert had jury-rigged from scrap. Your planner. Old ghost. Albert's arm tightened around him. Want me to fire him? Say the word. No. Billy leaned into the warmth, Albert's heartbeat a steady drum. Just stay tonight. Albert did, curling against him on the narrow cot, their bodies fitting like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time. In the quiet, with the estate sleeping under a blanket of stars, Billy whispered his fears, the mockery that echoed Marcus's barbs, the class chasm that yawned between them. Albert listened, then kissed his temple. They're blind, Billy. To you. To this. His hand gestured vaguely at the shed, the gardens beyond. To us. The word wrapped around Billy's heart like sturdy twine. He slept deep that night, dreams of blooming refuges chasing away the shadows. But shadows have a way of lengthening. The ball was a spectacle. Chandeliers freighted in from the city, casting fractured light over tuxedos and gowns. Billy kept to the fringes, trimming errant branches by lantern light, but the whispers found him. Gardeners got a crush on the air, pathetic. A tipsy heiress, fanning herself on the veranda. Laughter rippled, joined by Marcus's knowing smirk from the bar. Albert found him at midnight, pulling him into the orchard for a stolen dance under the moon-dappled branches. No music but the wind in the apples. No steps but their own clumsy sway. "Ignore them," Albert murmured, breath hot against Billy's ear. "They're jealous." Of this, Billy wanted to believe it, lost in the press of Albert's body, the way his hands mapped Billy's back like sacred ground. But as they parted, Albert drawn back to toasts and handshakes, Billy caught Marcus watching from the shadows, phone in hand, lips curled in something predatory. The next morning, Billy woke to a text from an unknown number. A photo, grainy but unmistakable. Him and Albert in the orchard, locked in that midnight embrace. Caption: "Careful, Billy. Some gardens don't bloom in the light." His stomach plummeted. Betrayal, fresh as frost. But whose hand held the phone? Winter clamped down on Willowbrook like a vice, the Hudson freezing in feathered edges along the bluffs. Billy shoveled paths through knee-deep snow, his breath puffing white dragons in the iron-gray air, but the real cold seeped from that photo, festering like black rot in his veins. He hadn't confronted Albert. Couldn't. Not yet. Instead, he buried it under layers of work, insulating the greenhouses, pruning the espaliered pears against the gables, sketching feverishly by lamplight of gardens that defied the freeze. Albert came and went, snow tires churning the drive, bringing thermoses of soup from his mother's cook and stories of Manhattan blizzards that shut down the world. "Come with me," he'd urge, nuzzling into Billy's neck during their stolen nights in the shed. "Sublet something tiny. We could make it ours." Billy would laugh it off, tracing the line of Albert's jaw. "And leave my kingdom of compost? Pass." But the doubt gnawed. The photo arrived sporadically now, snaps of them hiking the trails, Albert's hand in Billy's pocket, a blurry shot from the ball, mouths inches apart. No demands, just the silent threat of exposure. Billy changed his number, but the messages migrated to email, anonymous and venomous. "He'll tire of the help. Like last time, Marcus." It had to be. Billy pictured him in some sleek office, scrolling society rags for leverage, that old jealousy twisted into something sharper. But why? Revenge for a love long discarded? Or something uglier, tied to the Voss machine? One storm-lashed night, as sleet lashed the windows, Albert arrived soaked and shivering, a bottle of scotch under one arm. "Fight with father," he explained, stripping down by the fire. "Called me out on distractions. Thinks I'm slacking." Billy poured measures, the amber liquid glowing like captured sunset. "Distractions like me?" Albert's eyes flashed. "Hell yes. The good kind." He pulled Billy close, kisses turning urgent, hands roaming with a desperation that bordered on fear. They tumbled to the cot, bodies entwining in the fire's flicker, whispers of forever lost in gasps and sighs. After, spent and sated, Albert traced Billy's scars, faint ones from a teenage skateboarding wipeout, others from thorn pricks. "Tell me everything," he murmured. "No more walls." Billy hesitated, the album's weight pressing on his chest. Then, haltingly, he spoke of Elias and Theo, the love that built Willowbrook's heart, The scandal that tore it asunder when Theo's family dragged him back to Europe, leaving Elias to wither alone. He planted the ewes as a border, Billy finished, voice thick. Against the world. Died young. Heartbroken. That's why I came here, to honor it, I guess. Make it a refuge again. Albert listened, tears tracking silent down his temple. You're braver than me. I'd run. You are running. Billy cupped his face. To hear. To us. Their eyes locked. And in that gaze, Billy saw it. The fracture lines in Albert's armor. The boy who'd grown up queer in a house of straight edges. Loving in secret while the world demanded performance. I love you, Albert said. The words raw. Unscripted. God. Billy. I do. The confession cracked something open in Billy. A bloom long dormant. Love you too, he whispered, pulling him close. They fell asleep to the storm's lullaby. Dreams shared entangled limbs. Spring teased early that year. Crocuses pushing defiant through the snowmelt. Albert made good on his pleas, whisking Billy to the city for a weekend. His sister's empty atelier in Chelsea, walls splashed with her abstract oils. No penthouses, just take-out tie on the floor, walks in Washington Square where dogwood petals rained like confetti. See, Albert said, spinning Billy under a blooming branch. We fit anywhere. Billy believed it, almost. Until the gala invite arrived, gold embossed, for the Voss spring fete at Willowbrook. Come as my +1, Albert begged over FaceTime, his face pixelated but earnest. Show them we're real. Billy's gut twisted. The photosender's latest missive burned in his pocket. Appear with him, and the world sees your little orchard tango. But love, he reasoned, was a risk worth pruning. Okay, he said. But if they laugh, I'm shoving cake in their faces. The night arrived sweltering. Unusual for April, the estate's lawns strung with lanterns like fireflies on steroids. Billy dressed in his best, borrowed chinos from Hargrove's attic trunk, a crisp button-down that smelled of mothballs and memory. He waited by the fountain, nerves jangling like wind chimes, until Albert pulled up in the Porsche, stepping out in a navy suit that hugged him like a lover's promise. You clean up lethal, Albert said, wolf whistling as he offered his arm. Ready to storm the castle? Billy linked elbows, the contact grounding. Born ready, they entered arm in arm, heads high, the veranda falling to a hush before the murmurs swelled. Smiles from some, daggers from others. Marcus, at the bar, his toast glass pausing midair, eyes narrowing to slits. Billy met his stare, unflinching, and felt Albert's grip tighten. Solidarity. The evening unfolded in eddies of small talk and champagne flutes. Albert's father, Reginald Voss, silver-templed, with a handshake like a vice, clapped Billy on the back. Heard you're the wizard behind these blooms, son. Fine work. No slur, just gruff approval that warmed Billy more than the fizz on his tongue. But the undercurrent pulled. Whispers slithered. Voss's charity case? A cluster of socialites by the gazebo, fans fluttering like moth wings. Darling, it's tragic. Gardner playing house. Laughter, tinkling and toxic. Albert heard, jaw clenching, but Billy squeezed his hand. Let it roll off. Like water on leaves. They danced then, under the stars, to a string quartet's rendition of Gershwin. Albert's hand at Billy's waist, their steps sinking like roots entwining. For a stolen hour, the world blurred, mockers mere smudges on the periphery. Then Marcus approached, sleek as an oil slick, 2 glasses in hand. Billy. Albert. To old flames and new follies, he handed them drinks, his smile a scalpel. Albert accepted, wary. What do you want? Mark. Just a chat. Marcus leaned in, voice oily. Heard about your little rebellion. Oh, Daddy's not thrilled. And this, he nodded at Billy. Sweet, but sloppy. Photos don't lie. Billy's blood iced. Albert stiffened. Photos? Marcus smirked, pulling out his phone. There they were, the orchard kiss, the bluff embrace, dozens, time-stamped, leaked to the right ears, and poof, Voss airs queer dalliance with the help. Front page fodder, Albert's face drained of color. You son of a... Easy. Marcus pocketed the device. Delete them? Fine. But pull out of the merger protest. Play nice. Or everyone learns about Billy's colorful family tree. His eyes flicked to Billy. Venomous. Elias Harper's ghost haunts more than gardens. Doesn't it? Billy's world tilted. How? The album. He'd shown Albert, but no one else. Unless. Albert rounded on him, voice cracking. You told him? No. Billy's denial was a gasp. I swear. But doubt flickered in Albert's eyes, raw and wounding. Marcus slipped away, leaving the poison to spread. The music swelled, oblivious, as Albert backed into the crowd, murmuring, "Need air," before vanishing into the night. Billy stood frozen, champagne souring in his gut. Betrayal not Marcus's, but Albert's fracture, the chasm of class and fear yawning wide. He fled to the shed, the estate's lights mocking him, and wept for the refuge crumbling under his feet. The days after the fate blurred into a haze of isolation, Willowbrook's spring bloom mocking Billy's wilt. He worked mechanically, deadheading tulips that bled color onto his palms, their petals bruised like his trust. Albert's texts came sporadic. Sorry. Overwhelmed. Talk soon. Then silence. A void deeper than the frozen river had been. Billy scrolled the anonymous emails, piecing the puzzle. Marcus, hired by Reginald Voss not just as planner, but fixer silencing scandals, burying distractions that threatened the empire. One message stood out. Ask your lover about the merger. Real refuge. That. Billy's stomach nodded. The mill, Albert's protest, the layoffs it would force. Had Albert folded, traded their love for legacy? He drove to the city that weekend, the Porsche's absence a ghost in his rearview as he navigated the FDR in Hargrove's battered pickup. Chelsea streets buzzed with weekenders, but Albert's sister's atelier loomed dark, blinds drawn. A doorman eyed Billy's flannel. Voss? Ain't seen him since Tuesday. Try the office. Voss Industries towered in Midtown, glass and steel thrusting skyward like accusations. Billy bluffed his way to the lobby, heart hammering, but security waved him off. No appointments for groundskeepers. Pal. Humiliation burned as he retreated to a coffee shop across the street, nursing a black drip that tasted of ash. Hours ticked by, the revolving doors spinning executives like cogs. Then Albert emerged, suit rumpled, eyes shadowed, flanked by Marcus, who clapped his shoulder with false camaraderie. Billy bolted across traffic, horns blaring. Albert. They turned, Albert's face crumpling. Marcus's smirk bloomed. Well, if it isn't. Back off. Billy shouldered past, grabbing Albert's arm. We need to talk. Now. Albert hesitated, glancing at Marcus, who shrugged. Go on, lover boy. Duty calls. They ducked into a side alley, the city's din muffling their breaths. What the hell? Billy exploded, voice echoing off brick. You ghost me after that shit show? After he threatens us? Albert's eyes darted. Guilty. I didn't, Billy. It's complicated. Father knows about the photos. Pressured me to. Distance. Distance. Billy's laugh was hollow. That's code for folding. You caved on the merger, didn't you? Silence. Damning. Albert looked away, jaw tight. It's not that simple. The board. Fuck the board. Billy's hands balled into fists. You said you loved me. That this, he gestured wildly between them, was real. Or was that just another veranda performance? Albert stepped closer, voice breaking. It is real. God. Billy, you're the only real thing. But if I fight, they destroy you. The photos, the stories about Elias, they'll paint you as some gold-digging ghost, haunting the estate for scraps. Billy recoiled, the words a slap. And you let them? Sell me out to save your skin? No. Albert reached, but Billy jerked back. I deleted them. Convinced Marcus to. But the merger is done. Signatures tomorrow. Betrayal crystallized, sharp as frost. So that's it. Refuge for you, ruin for everyone else. Albert's tears spilled then, hot and unbidden. I hate it. Hate him. Come with me after. We start over. Paris. Anywhere. Billy shook his head, the alley closing in. Can't build on lies. Albert. You know that. He walked away, the city swallowing him, each step a severance. Back at Willowbrook, he tore into the gardens with feral energy, uprooting invasives that choked the beds, their roots snapping like brittle promises. Hargrove called from the city, voice crackling over the line. Heard about the Voss boy. You all right, son? Fine, Billy lied, fingers black with soil. Just tending what's mine. Hargrove chuckled, dry as autumn leaves. That's the Harper in you. Elias's blood. He lost his Theo to the same poison, fear. Don't let it take you too. The words rooted deep, but the wound festered. Weeks passed in solitude, the estate's hush broken only by birdsong and the river's murmur. Billy sketched obsessively. Visions of Willowbrook reborn, not as playground for the elite, but sanctuary, open gardens for artists, quiet corners for the heartbroken. He poured his ache into the soil, planting perennials that promised return. Resilient, unbowed. Then, one muggy June dawn, tires crunched the drive. Not the Porsche, a rental sedan, dust-caked. Albert stepped out, gaunt in khakis and a faded tee, duffel slung over one shoulder. No polish, just raw edges, stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes red-rimmed. Gone, he said simply, dropping the bag. Quit. Walked out after the signing. Told father everything, about us, the photos, the bullshit. He disowned me on the spot. Billy leaned on the shed door, rake in hand, heart a war drum. And, Albert's laugh was shattered glass. And nothing. Bank accounts frozen. Name scrubbed from the letterhead. Marcus fired him on the way out, leaked his own dirt to the tabloids. Payback. Billy's grip tightened. Why now? Because I was wrong. Albert closed the distance. Voice steady despite the tremor. You were right, can't build on lies. I chose wrong once. Not again. He knelt then, not in supplication, but solidarity, hands in the dirt beside Billy's. Teach me how to tend this. From the ground up, Billy searched his face, seeing the boy from the storm, the man from the bluff, flawed, but fighting. The refuge Elias had built wasn't stone or soil. It was choice, forgiveness dulled like sunlight. Get up, Billy said, soft. Dirt's not for kneeling. Albert rose, and they worked side by side that day, pruning the wild roses, their thorns nicking fingers in tandem. No grand gestures, just quiet communion, shared water from the hose, laughter over a snapped branch. By dusk, as fireflies kindled the lawns, Albert pulled a small box from his duffel, not ring, but seed packets, rare heirlooms from Theo's Italian line, smuggled home by Elias. Plant them with me, Albert said. Our border. Billy nodded, throat tight. Yeah. Ours. But the high summer brought heat that cracked the earth, and with it, the storm's echo. Reginald Voss arrived unannounced one sweltering afternoon, his Bentley idling like a predator at the gate. Billy spotted him from the orchard, suit impeccable amid the humidity, face carved from granite. Harper, Reginald called, striding the path in loafers that sank in the mulch. A word. Billy wiped sweat from his brow, Albert materializing at his side, solid, unyielding. Mr. Voss. Reginald's gaze flicked between them, disdain thinly veiled. Albert. This interlude. Entertaining, but enough. The merger's in motion. Come home. Willowbrook's no place for moping heirs. Albert's chin lifted. Not moping, father. Building. Reginald snorted. Building what? A fairy tale in the weeds. His eyes raked Billy. Or revenge. Digging up Elias Harper's dirt. Thought you were smarter than that. Boy. Billy's blood surged. Elias built this. My family bled for it. You just rent the view. Reginald's laugh was bark. Bled? For what scandal? Your kin was a pariah, consorting like animals. And you, he jabbed at Albert, dragging our name through it. End this farce. Albert stepped forward, voice steel. No. I love him. And the merger? It'll ruin lives, mill workers, families. You taught me legacy, father. This is mine. Reginald's face purpled. Ungrateful. Go. Billy's voice cut through, calm as deep water. Estates closed to you. All of it. For a heartbeat, Reginald loomed, then deflated, turning on his heel. The Bentley roared away, dust clouding the drive like a curse lifted. They stood in the silence, Albert trembling. Billy pulled him close. The orchard's shade a bomb. You did it, he whispered. We did. Albert's kiss was fierce, claiming. But in his eyes, Billy saw the cost. The bridge burned, the empire crumbled. As cicadas hummed the long twilight, Billy wondered if Refuge could hold two broken men, or if love, like gardens, demanded constant tending against the weeds of regret. Autumn returned, not as thief but architect, weaving gold through Willowbrook's canopy. Billy and Albert settled into a rhythm, tentative at first, like seedlings testing soil. Albert traded boardrooms for blueprints, apprenticing under a local architect to restore the estate's hidden bowers, his hands learning the language of levels and lumber. No salary, just calluses and the quiet pride of creation. They shared the shed, expanding it with salvaged beams into something resembling home. A loft bed curtained in muslin, shelves of books mingling with seed catalogs, a kitchenette where Albert's disastrous pancakes became ritual. Mornings dawned with coffee brewed strong, shared on the veranda Billy had reclaimed, roses reblooming unchecked, wilder, freer. Tastes like victory, Albert would say, clinking mugs, his smile chasing the shadows from his eyes. Nights blurred into stories, Albert confessing boyhood crushes on stable hands, the terror of debutante balls where he'd feigned straight smiles. Billy unspooling Marcus's slow poison, how it had convinced him love was a weed to be pulled. Yet the mockery lingered, a specter in the wind. Society pages dissected the Voss fall, headlines sneering at the disgraced heir, shacking up with the help. Invites dried up, old friends ghosted. Albert bore it with brittle humor, but Billy saw the toll, the way he'd startle at footsteps, or trace old scars from a childhood fall, whispering, "Worth it, always," Billy replied, sealing it with a kiss. But doubt crept in like bindweed, coiling tight. The climax brewed with Hargrove's letter, arriving crisp in its envelope. "Time to come home, son. Willowbrook's yours, if you want it." The old man, cancer-eaten in his Park Avenue suite, deeding the estate to Billy outright, Elias's legacy reclaimed, free of leases or Voss strings. Billy read it aloud by the fire, Albert's head in his lap. "Holy shit," Albert breathed. "You're the Lord now," Billy laughed, uneasy. "Caretaker, maybe. But yeah, ours." The news spread like pollen. First to the village, where mill workers slapped Billy's back at the diner. "Stick it to him, kid." Then to the city, where Reginald Voss caught wind via a leaked abstract. He descended on a leaf-peppered Sunday, not in Bentley but a chauffeured town car, face haggard under the perpetual tan. "Harper," he boomed from the drive, Albert hovering like a guard dog. A moment. Alone. Billy waved him off, togetherness their new creed, and met Reginald by the fountain, water trickling like uneasy truce. "Heard the windfall." "Hargrove's joke, I suppose." "No joke." Billy crossed arms. "Justice." Reginald's eyes narrowed, praising. Justice? Or spite? Elias Harper was a fool, loving where he shouldn't, building refuges that crumbled. "Don't repeat it." Billy's temper flared, hot as cider. "Crumble? This place stands because of him. Because of choices like loving anyway." Reginald stepped closer, voice dropping. "Love. Fine words for a gardener. But Albert, he's mine. Blood. Come to terms. Drop the deed. Send him back. I'll fund your hobbies." Quietly, the offer hung, temptation's thorn. Billy saw it, security, no more scraping, Albert restored to ease. But ease bought with erasure? He thought of Elias's photos, lovers defiant in sepia, of Albert's hand in his, dirt shared and true. "Go to hell," Billy said, voice steady. Take your terms with you. Reginald's face twisted. Rage. Then something cracked. Human. You'll ruin him. Like your uncle ruined himself. He left without another word, the car vanishing into the turning leaves. Billy found Albert in the orchard, axe in hand, chopping deadwood with furious swings. What did he want? Albert panted, sweat beading. You. Billy took the axe, setting it aside, pulling him into an embrace slick with effort. But I said no. Albert sagged against him, sobs muffled in Billy's shoulder. Hate him. Hate what he made me. Not you, Billy murmured, rocking him like a storm-tossed sapling. What we make now. That night, they burned the deadwood in a bonfire by the bluffs, flames leaping high as confessions. Albert tossed in the last of his old ties, silk nooses of expectation, watching them curl to ash. Free, he whispered, Billy's arms around him, the Hudson a black mirror below. But freedom's price came swift. Days later, the mill closed, merger sealed, jobs vaporized. Protests flared in the village square, signs bobbing, Voss kills towns. Reporters swarmed Willowbrook's gates, cameras flashing like accusations. Disgraced heirs love nest, one tabloid screamed, photoshopped shots of Billy and Albert kissing amid the ruins. Albert barricaded himself in the shed, blinds drawn, voice hollow over the phone to his sister. Can't face it. The stares, the pity. Billy fielded the calls, chased off the gawkers, but the isolation gnawed, meals untouched, sketches abandoned. One rain-lashed evening, Billy found him by the gazebo, Elias's haven now sagging under neglect. Albert sat on the steps, soaked, eyes vacant. They were right, he said, voice breaking. I'm poison. Ruined everything. My family, the town. You. Billy knelt, rain streaming down his face. No. You fought. That's not poison. That's courage. Albert's laugh was wrench. Courage? Look around. Your refuge. Tainted. Billy cupped his face, thumbs brushing tears. Not tainted. Tested. Like soil after flood, fertile, if you let it. He led Albert back, toweling him dry, brewing tea laced with bourbon. They talked till dawn. Plans for the estate, community gardens for laid-off workers, workshops for queer artists fleeing city rents. Our legacy, Billy said, echoing Elias. Not hiding. Inviting. Albert's eyes cleared, spark reigniting. Yeah. Inviting. The turning point came with the harvest moon, full and fierce. Billy organized a vigil at the mill's gates, torches and lanterns, voices raised in song, not rage. Albert stood at the front, microphone shaking in hand. I failed you. My name did. But Willowbrook's opening jobs in restoration, training for trades. It's a start. For us. Cheers erupted, hands clasping his, the crowd a tide of forgiveness. Billy watched from the shadows, pride swelling like roots. Later, under the moon's glow, they walked the paths hand in hand, the estate alive with possibility. You're my refuge, Albert said, stopping to kiss him slow, deep. Always were. Billy smiled, heart full. And you're mine. But as winter's breath stirred the leaves, a letter arrived from Reginald, terse, typed, saw the vigil. Foolish, but noble. If he needs me, doors open. No apology, but a crack in the granite. Human, after all. Billy folded it away, turning to Albert, who slept peaceful in the loft. Refuge wasn't perfection. It was this, tending through tempests, blooming in the breaks. Winter's grip loosened grudgingly that year, yielding to a spring that burst upon Willowbrook like redemption. The estate transformed under their hands. Community plots tilled by mill families, their rows of kale and carrots a defiant green against the layoff's gray. Artist residencies in the restored stables, queer creators sketching by day, sharing stories by firelight. Billy oversaw it all, his sketches now blueprints, Albert's architectural eye sharpening the edges. No longer mocked, they were myth, the gardener and the fallen heir, weaving sanctuary from scandal's threads. Yet the humanistic heart of it pulsed quiet. In stolen moments, Albert's laughter echoing as he wrestled a tiller, mud to his elbows. Billy's sketches now including a figure beside him, tall, blonde, forever pruning at his side. The mockery faded to footnotes, the village diner's chatter shifting to those Voss Harper boys, fixing what broke. Reginald's visits began tentative, a Sunday drive up the bluffs, parked at a distance, watching the workshops hum. No words at first, just nods through the windshield. Then, one lilac-scented afternoon, he appeared at the veranda, hat in hand, offering a bottle of single malt. "Peace," he rumbled, voice gravel. Albert accepted, wary, Billy hovering like a bur oak. They sat on the steps, awkward at first, silence as thick as fog. Reginald cleared his throat. "The mill. I pushed too hard. Legacy's a blindfold sometimes." Albert's eyes widened. "You." Admitting that, a shrug. "Old men learn slow. Your vigil stirred things. Boards reconsidering expansions. Jobs? Maybe. It wasn't absolution, but a bridge creaky, spanned." Reginald stayed for dinner that night. Billy's venison stew and Albert's lopsided cornbread. Conversation veering to Elias. "Met him once," Reginald confessed. "Glass in hand. Sharp mind. Shame what the world did." Billy raised his mug. "Not shame. Strength. Built this." Reginald nodded, eyes on the gardens. "That he did." He left with a handshake for Billy. "Good work, son." And a clap for Albert that lingered, paternal. Not mended whole, but stitched, scars visible but healing. Summer swelled. The estate's gates flung wide for the first Willowbrook Refuge Festival. Lanterns strung through the mazes. Stages for poets reciting love like revolution. Food trucks dishing farm fresh from the plots. Crowds came, not elites in pearls, but locals in faded jeans. Families picnicking on the lawns Billy had once toiled alone. A young couple, hands laced, sought him out. "Heard your story. Gives us hope." Billy blushed, Albert's arm around his waist. "Just tending what grows." As dusk deepened, they danced in the gazebo, restored now, lattice blooming with Theo's heirloom roses. To fiddles and guitars, the crowd a swirl of faces. Marcus appeared at the edges, uninvited, gaunt in a thrift store blazer. "No malice, just defeat. Heard you won." "Fair play." Albert nodded curt, but Billy extended a hand. "Dance? Or grab a beer?" Marcus blinked, then took the beer, fading into the throng. Redemption's whisper, not roar. The night peaked with fireworks over the Hudson, bursts of color etching their faces in light. Albert pulled Billy aside, to the bluff's edge, where Elias's boulder stood sentinel. 1 year, he said, pressing a small envelope into Billy's palm. Since the shed. Since you. Inside. A deed addendum. Willowbrook joint in their names. Partners, Albert murmured. In all of it. Billy's throat closed, tears pricking. Thought you'd run. Almost did. Albert's kiss was soft, anchoring. But refuges aren't run to. They're rooted in. They stood then, arms entwined, watching the river carry sparks downstream. The estate sprawled behind, alive with laughter, no longer worshipped as monument, but cherished as haven. Mockers, mere echoes, drowned by the hum of growth. In the quiet after, Billy traced Albert's knuckles, scarred now with honest work. Think Elias is smiling? Albert grinned, moon-silvered. Theo too. Somewhere, and as stars wheeled overhead, Willowbrook breathed, human, flawed, enduring. A story not of princes or paupers, but men who chose each other, tilling love from the unlikeliest soil. Refuge, after all, was no grand estate, but the space between two hearts, held against the storm. The festival wound down, lanterns winking out like farewells, but Billy and Albert lingered, walking the paths hand in hand. Fireflies danced in their wake, mirroring the spark that had ignited in rain and ruin. Tomorrow would bring new weeds, doubts, decisions, the world's unyielding pull, but tonight, under the vast American sky, they were whole. Billy paused at the shed, their first sanctuary, now a cottage with windows aglow. Home, he said. Albert pulled him close, forehead to forehead. Yeah. Home. And in that word, all the drama, emotion, romance woven human, vast as the Hudson, deep as roots found its peace.